A shooting spree in Taiwan's capital leaves 4 injured, including a police officer. The U.S. dollar reaches a near 6-year high against Taiwan's dollar as global currency volatility persists. U.S. and Taiwan cooperation could go a step further with reports of a joint plan to produce weapons. Plus, a famous scenic spot is letting people camp out in style, but conservationists are not impressed. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Liao. A gang member has killed himself after a rampage in Taipei's Wanhua district. As John Van Trieste reports, police are still investigating the gangster's motives, but 4 others, including a police officer, have suffered gunshot wounds.
Captured on video, a police standoff. A gunman emerges from a doorway with a hostage before turning the gun on himself. The 57-year-old shooter, Chou Guolong, a suspected gang member, was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. The violence took place in one of Taipei's poorest and most densely populated districts, Wanhua. Earlier that evening, Chou fired at 3 men in apparent gang-related violence. He then fled the scene with 4 hostages, including a woman and a child.
第一时间到达现场之后，我们立即启动快打部队以外，那调动全分级的有所有的可以调动的警力到现场，将整个4处的街道全部的封锁。
During an hour-long standoff with police, all hostages were released. 1 police officer was shot.
还好他有穿防弹衣的，所以只有打到大腿的，应该是右大腿嘛。不过还有那个没有打到动脉，所以大概开刀，今天晚上连夜开刀把那个伤口清理掉就可以。
Violent crime is rare in Taiwan, with 3.61 incidents per 100,000 people, and is considered one of the safest countries in Asia. A crackdown on organised crime over the summer saw 450 people arrested and more than 100 firearms seized. This week, Taiwan relaxed gun rules for police officers, expanding the situations in which they can use lethal weapons, a reaction to 2 police officers being killed in August by an escaped convict. The motives behind this latest incident are still unknown, but the shootings and the hostage-taking in one of the capital's busiest neighbourhoods has rattled residents and put a spotlight on the battle against violent crime. Rick Lowett and James Rayner for TaiwanPlus.
The U.S. dollar has reached its highest level against the Taiwan dollar in nearly 6 years, as rising U.S. interest rates continue to cause volatility in global currency markets. It's prompted calls for more support for businesses impacted by the rising cost of imports. James Chater reports.
Climbing U.S. interest rates are putting pressure on currencies around the world, and Taiwan is no exception. The value of $1 US closed above 32 Taiwan dollars on Wednesday, its highest level for nearly 6 years. That makes imports bought in US dollars and any US dollar debt more expensive. Now, the chairman of one of Taiwan's most influential business associations has said the government should be on the lookout for ramifications.
我们想应该对于贫穷家庭、低收入家庭，对于困难企业，应该给予适当的补助。
Strain from a soaring US dollar is being felt across Asia. Japan's yen this week reached a 32-year low against the dollar, fueling speculation the country's central bank would have to intervene for the 2nd time this year to prop up the currency.
為替市場の動向を高い緊張感を持って注視するとともに、過度な変動に対しましては今後も適切な対応を取りたいと考えているところであります。
In Taiwan, the central bank chief cited exchange rate volatility as a key economic challenge in the coming months, with growth next year set to slow.
我们是比较乐观哈，我们今年的经济增长是3.51哦，那我们2023年是2.9哦，我那个 S&P 给我们的是只有2.2。 那2023年呢，我们1.88，它也差不多1.88。
Pressure on Taiwan's currency is not as high as in other parts of the region, but with more US interest rate hikes expected, currency volatility is likely to remain a thorn in the side of governments. Alex Chen and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
The Director General of Taiwan's National Security Bureau says China could use force to bring Taiwan to the negotiating table as early as next year.
武力攻台没有赢的可能，会造成国际上对它的经济制裁、外交的孤立，断送了它所谓中华民族伟大的复兴。
Chen Mingtong made the statement to Taiwanese lawmakers, adding that domestic instability in China could also lead Beijing to take action against Taiwan. Chen's remarks come as the head of the U.S. Navy this week warned that China could try and invade Taiwan before 2024. U.S. Navy officials had previously forecast that China could take action on Taiwan before 2027. The U.S. is considering a plan to jointly produce weapons with Taiwan. That's according to a report from Nikkei Asia. It comes after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said earlier this week that China is determined to pursue unification with Taiwan on a much faster timeline. China has recently ramped up military activity around Taiwan, which it claims as part of its own territory. Beijing has not renounced the use of force to achieve its goal. Taiwan's defense ministry told Nikkei it will make a request to the U.S. to expedite arms sales. The foreign ministry said on Thursday that it had no comment on the report. For more on the significance of possible weapons manufacturing cooperation between the U.S. and Taiwan, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Su Ziyun, a weapons expert in Taiwan's Institute of National Defense and Security Research.
A recent report from Nikkei Asia says that the Biden administration is considering a plan to produce weapons with Taiwan. If this goes through, how important will that be for Taiwan in its overall defense capabilities?
好，我的观察是这样子，就是这个就是消息，我相信可能性是很高的。主要是因为台湾跟美国以前已经有这样的一个经验，也就是工业合作，比如说战斗机，还有就是 warship 船舰都有合作的这个经验。那第二个是美国本身这个它的这个工业的那个能力，第一个受到疫情 pandemic 的影响，那第二个是俄乌战争的影响。所以考虑到这个时间的压力，也就是一般预估可能在2027年，中国可能会用武力，就是来对付台湾。那在刚才像主持人说了，在5年的时间，比较短的时间，这个 short term 里面，如果台湾可以加入这个就是一起生产的行列，对于美国跟台湾来讲，都是会是比较就是有帮助的。那台湾就是目前已经改善了一些，就是关于机密的保护的一些措施，所以台湾跟美国如果可以合作的话，我想对于区域安全是非常有帮助的。
Experts have said that 2027 is the year that China could have the capability to invade Taiwan. If that's so, with 5 years out, what does Taiwan need to prioritize to build its own defenses?
从美国这些所谓的毅力他们的一个评估来看的话，2027年是一个时间点。那第二个，最近美国的海军的作战部长，他在国会就是听证会也说，说不定可能在2022年或2023年，中国就会采取军事行动。那我们无论如何，就是不管它这个 timetable 是怎么样的状况，那台湾现在就是最优先的，就是要增加刚才您说的 anti-ship 或 air defense 这个防空跟反舰的这些飞弹。因为它第一个是比较便宜 low cost， 第二个是它获得的这个 schedule 会比较快。那如果在这种情况之下，可以有足够的一些反舰跟防空飞弹，那可能就会让中国重新去思考，也就是我们常说的，它要去 recheck range schedule， 这个攻台的这个时间表。
Taiwan's government has tapped TSMC founder Morris Chang to be its representative at this year's APEC summit once again. It will be the 6th time that Chang will serve as the country's envoy to the Regional Trade Organization's leadership meeting. The 2-day summit will be held in Thailand in mid-November. The meeting is being held in person for the first time since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic.
现在我们是在一个相当挑战性的 环境里面 ，APEC 是一个相当重要，应该说是我们最重要的国际场合。
With a pledge to, quote, trawl the world for talent, Hong Kong's chief executive made reviving the city's fortunes a centerpiece of his maiden policy address. The leader's proposals mostly reinforced Beijing's plan for the city and did little to cheer the financial markets. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick has more.
After months in recession and years under the shadow of political instability and some of the world's strictest COVID measures, there is much anticipation over Hong Kong leader John Lee's maiden policy address. In a government that no longer has any seats held by opposition parties, it was predictably well received by the roundly pro-Beijing legislature. But those expecting the return to the world stage of this once freewheeling financial hub were quickly disappointed.
今年最令市民深受鼓舞嘅，當然係國家主席習近平親臨香港，出席慶祝香港回歸祖國25週年，以及香港特別行政區第6屆政府就職典禮，並且發表重要講話。我感謝習主席嘅重要講話，呢個已經成為我嘅施政藍圖。
It's a blueprint that has seen the city's Hang Seng Index, one of the world's largest stock markets, slip further into the red.
They really started to slide as the speech went on. Yesterday, the Hang Seng Index closed virtually at the low of the day, at an 11-year low. Today, it's sliding once again. It's down another couple of percent. And if it ends up at the end of the day where it is now, it'll be the lowest close since May 2009. So that'll be a 13-year low.
Lee's address saw a rare admission of Hong Kong's brain drain crisis, acknowledging that the city of 7.5 million has lost around 140,000 skilled workers over the past 2 years. The exodus started with the imposition of the wide-ranging national security law in 2020 and picked up pace as Hong Kong laid down some of the world's most rigid pandemic border controls. Lee proposed incentives to attract more international talent, but steered clear of both these key issues.
The problem is, some of those issues can't be addressed because they really come from Beijing. It's things like concern about the national security law. Parents have been taking their children out of school because they're worried that the education system is becoming too politicized. The CE didn't get onto the COVID restrictions until right at the very end of his 2 3/4 hour speech. We were hoping to see some sort of timeline and some sort of exit strategy for how these restrictions would be removed and we could return to normal life. But that was missing from the policy address.
Instead, Lee's speech focused on schemes to push integration with mainland China, echoing Beijing's ambitions to see the special administrative region become another component of a vast new Greater Bay Area, comprising 9 cities around the Pearl River Delta. Activists in exile say it falls in line with Beijing's plans to absorb the international city into Greater China.
John Lee is mentioning more and more of the Greater Bay Area because I see it as one of his political missions during his term to eventually dissolve, the land, the concept, and the boundaries, the borders of Hong Kong, and instead replace it with the Greater Bay Area.
The Greater Bay Area was referenced over 50 times in Lee's address. Also clocking in dozens of mentions was the Northern Metropolis, an expansive new development slated for Hong Kong's rural hinterland near the border with the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen.
The Northern Metropolis is definitely a symbol of Hong Kong's center of power and influence, moving and shifting closer to Beijing and moving closer to Shenzhen.
It's seen as a means of melting away a once paramount distinction between the former British colony and its authoritarian neighbor.
One thing that actually shocked me was when he said that government offices could move to, the Northern Metropolis, which actually is not very connected to other, offices or other entities inside of Hong Kong. So I think his move is really saying that in the future, Hong Kong is going to have a much tighter ties with, mainland China, and it's also going to go out of their way to really make it convenient for Chinese officials to come to Hong Kong and for the police officers from the National Security Department to travel to Hong Kong and monitor what's going on.
For many, the chief executive's policy address fell short of its pledge to deliver a clear plan to revive the city's status as an international hub. But it has shown both residents and the wider world the direction Hong Kong is heading. Ryan Hill-Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
South Korea is reinstating visa-free entry for travelers with a Taiwanese passport. The program starts in November, but visitors will need to apply online for travel authorization 3 days before their trip. They will also have to fill out a health questionnaire upon arrival. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Korea was the third most popular tourist destination for Taiwan, with 500 flights every week between the two countries. King Mswati III of Eswatini has arrived in Taiwan for his 18th visit to the country. The African nation of Eswatini is Taiwan's only remaining diplomatic ally on the continent and a vocal supporter of Taiwan's international participation. On his trip, the king is expected to hold an event aimed at attracting Taiwanese investment, visit an oil refinery, and meet with Eswatini students in Taiwan. To find out more about the King of Eswatini's visit and the state of Taiwan-Eswatini relations, John Van Trieste spoke to African politics expert Yan Zhengsen of National Zhengzi University.
First of all, what can you tell us about Taiwan's relationship with Eswatini? Over the past few years, it's lost a number of African allies, Sao Tome and Principe, Burkina Faso, and also the Gambia. Right now, Eswatini is the only African country that has ties with Taiwan instead of China. Why is this?
The only reason I think we will be able to maintain the relation is because, first of all, this is a smaller country that our aid, our foreign assistance can really reach people as well as visible at local community. And then, of course, the king, Mswati III, he came to power in 1986, I think, or 88. But at the same time, we have to say his father, who established a relation with Taiwan, has basically told him that he would love to remain, the country has to remain committed to the Taiwan tie. So that's what he has done.
Is there any pressure on Eswatini from China or any attempts to lure them away with promises of aid, perhaps greater than what Taiwan can provide or is willing to?
Yeah, but I think they can learn from the other Southern African countries, our former diplomatic ally, Malawi. And Malawi was promised with a massive aid, but didn't really receive it. I have friends from Malawi who told me that they kind of regret about it.
Now, King Mswati is making his 18th visit to Taiwan. Why does he visit so frequently? Is he particularly fond of Taiwan? And what is the significance of his visit this time?
The king and his entourage came to Taiwan every year or two. This time because of COVID, so maybe 4 years now. But I think he will, be received very well here, visiting some of the, Eswatini students here, including some of them maybe from his family. But also, I think we will provide him with very good medical care as well, having a health checkup here. So it is a great time to come and then also reassure Taiwan that the Kingdom of Eswatini will remain a diplomatic ally with Taiwan.
Does Taiwan's relationship with Eswatini, which is an absolute monarchy, and this particular monarch in any way damage its reputation as a freedom-loving democracy?
Well, some people will question that, but we need every diplomatic ally we have. So, example, if we question about the human rights of Eswatini, what about United States? United States has diplomatic tie with Saudi Arabia, which has a great problem. If you look at the Freedom House ranking or democracy index, I think Eswatini is way ahead of Saudi Arabia, or even the one that United States criticized the most, mainland China.
Bombs and shooting at Myanmar's largest prison have left at least 8 people dead. 2 parcel bombs exploded on Wednesday morning at the visitors' entrance of the prison, prompting soldiers to open fire. The confrontation killed 3 prison officers and 5 visitors. 18 people were wounded. Incheon prison in the country's largest city, Yangon, houses at least 10,000 people. Many of them are political prisoners detained for opposing the military junta, which seized power in a February 2021 coup. An anti-junta group claimed responsibility for Wednesday's bombing on social media. North Korea has ordered another round of artillery fire in what Pyongyang says is a response to South Korean military drills. The shelling comes at a time of heightened military tension on the Korean peninsula. Pyongyang had already fired at least 150 rounds of artillery off its east coast and 100 off its west coast this week. South Korea is conducting annual drills designed to boost its ability to respond to threats from the north. Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared martial law in the 4 regions of Ukraine that he's annexed. But in one city, tens of thousands of residents are evacuating ahead of a possible assault by Ukrainian forces to retake it. It's a sign that Russian forces are under pressure, as Louise Watt now reports.
This is the port city of Kherson in southern Ukraine. It was the first major city to fall to Russian forces when their invasion started almost 8 months ago. But now, Russian state TV is showing residents leaving.
Мне с работы позвонили, сказали, мы сегодня эвакуируемся, хотя я еще вчера вечером уже знала, что будет эвакуация, что будут прямые эти сюда. Мы сильно боимся, что ГЭС вот это наше. А если ГЭС нас пол Херсона не будет?
The Russian installed leaders in Kherson say they're evacuating as many as 60,000 people as a Ukrainian counter-offensive draws near. Russia's recently appointed top commander in Ukraine gave a rare acknowledgement that his forces are under pressure.
На данном направлении сложилась непростая ситуация. Противник целенаправленно наносит удары по объектам инфраструктуры и жилым домам Херсона, по объектам социальной, экономической, производственной инфраструктуры.
In another sign that Moscow's invasion is faltering, Russian President Vladimir Putin declared martial law in 4 Ukrainian regions, including Kherson, areas Moscow said it had annexed just 3 weeks ago.
Мы работаем над решением очень сложных, масштабных задач по обеспечению безопасности и надежного будущего России, по защите наших людей.
Asked about the declaration of martial law, U.S. President Joe Biden said it shows Putin is in an incredibly difficult position.
What it reflects to me is it seems his only tool available to him is to brutalize individual citizens in Ukraine, Ukrainian citizens, to try to intimidate them into capitulating.
Away from the front lines, another target, Ukraine's power supply. The country has begun restricting electricity use nationwide after a barrage of Russian missiles and drones struck a third of Ukraine's power plants. The attacks show that while Russia is preparing for battle in Kherson, the front lines of this war extend all over Ukraine. Andy Xue and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Actress Anna May Wong will become the first Asian American to appear on a U.S. coin. Chinese-American Wong was born in California in 1905 and died in 1961. Wong starred in more than 60 films and is regarded as the first Asian American star in Hollywood. She is the 5th woman to be announced as part of a group of distinguished American women to appear on the U.S. quarter coin. A popular scenic area in central Taiwan is launching a new camping option for visitors to stay at. But as Eric Gao reports, there are some concerns that this increased human activity could have a negative impact on the local environment.
Enjoying the outdoors in comfort. These tents are right outside the visitor center of Gaomei Wetlands, a 300-hectare nature reserve in central Taiwan. People are now allowed to stay the night with all the amenities of home.
算风蛮大的，但是我觉得很好玩，然后还可以去木栈道啊，看螃蟹。
The wetlands are known for its biodiversity, with crabs, mudskippers, and birds all living there. Officials say they've taken steps to minimize the camper's impact on the local ecology.
是沿用游客中心里面的盥洗室来做使用吼，所以这部分我们就没有新增更多的生活污水了。
游客所衍生的这些垃圾，那我们固定是每周来由委外的业者来固定做清运。
Despite these precautions, conservationists warn that the increased human activity will still affect the environment.
附近的地方，也许夜游或者是走路。那在这个旅客服务中心的附近的那些防风林里面，事实上是有相当多的鹿蟹在那个位置，当然会干扰鸟类栖息的这个因素也要考虑进去。
Scholars say that while the campsite will bring more tourists to the area, operators need to work harder to keep the sanctuary as pristine as possible for wildlife. Kama Xu and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is showing off its latest styles with Taipei Fashion Week. As part of the events, a runway show was held Wednesday night, showcasing pieces made exclusively from second-hand denim products. The designers of the collection want to promote zero-waste fashion. To highlight the collection's theme of equality, the show culminated with the unofficial marriage of a same-sex couple dressed in the upcycled denim outfits.
我觉得非常棒。因为我觉得 fashion 就是需要跟很多的概念结合，然后特别要去宣扬很多的正确的想法。那我觉得他们能够用这样的一个结合，我觉得是非常棒的创意。
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally today, we leave you with images of a humpback whale entangled in a buoy in Western Canada. Rescuers managed to release it successfully. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.